Hey guys, we're back with the New York Millennial and something a little bit different. We're starting a new show, a new type of video, and basically we're going to be reviewing different politicians and our opinions on them and kind of what they've done throughout their tenure.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, we're both liberal, so if there's something that a politician does that we like, you may not like it because maybe you're conservative, that's fine. So just keep that in mind throughout this whole video is we're looking at it from a biased point of view. So starting off with Andrew Cuomo. He is the current governor of New York from 2010 to current, and he's a Democrat. And we're just going to hop into his policies. Kyle, you want to take it away with same-sex marriage?
Yes, sure. One moment. Okay. Yeah, he's very good with same-sex marriage. Like he's considered like a champion, and this guy Richard, I'm gonna say this wrong, by the way. This guy Richard Sokerides, a senior advisor in the Clinton White House, who is now president of Equality Matters, a gay advocacy organization, said that for gay Americans, Cuomo was the only national politician with hero status. So basically, he's like almost like a champion
Hmm.
for these people.
He's very pro-gay rights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
extremely, which is really cool. In his first year in office, he signed the same-sex marriage legislation on June 24th, 2011. So that's also like right out of the gate, he was already
Yeah.
doing this. So
And he really pushed for it too. Like, it basically said he kind of had to twist some arms to get it passed through, but that was something he really just wanted to get through, and I think it's really cool, honestly, because he's not using it for politics. He's not being like, oh, I'm just gonna use this. If you elect me again, I'm gonna like get this passed. He like really pushed for it. It was something he really believed in. I feel like,
yeah,
which I
I
really
completely
liked.
agree.
Um, Moving on to taxes. So from what I understand, he's kind of like I would say in the middle, kind of obviously leaning towards the left. So basically, there was this millionaires tax that was gonna go away after a certain time, and then the taxes are just gonna go lower. He made a compromise with his Congress. That's not the right word. I think it's like assembly. Anyway, they actually they lowered the taxes, but they weren't as low as you'd expect them, and I probably explained that weirdly. But basically, after the taxes, that millionaire's tax is going to expire, the taxes are going to be lower. He made sure they weren't as low, even though they still dropped a little bit.
Yeah,
So it's kind of in the middle
yeah,
because like a super like hardcore liberal would have been like, no, we're going to keep them the same. Obviously, conservative would have been like, no, let them drop that low.
hmm
And it's basically that response is like some conservatives are upset because it's like, oh, this is like hurting free markets, blah blah blah, and then some liberals are upset. It's like, oh, you didn't go far enough. You're not helping the income inequality and like the like this isn't a fair tax system still.
yeah. Because I mean, basically, he is like he restructured the code, and basically, the higher earners are going to be paying more taxes. But at the end of the day, it's just not enough to fix like this entire inequality issue. But it's definitely a good. I mean, at least he did something.
Yeah, it's what you'd see from like a centrist Democrat,
Exactly.
which is kind of what he is really.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Moving on to gun control, right?
Yeah. So gun control. He's actually really strong on this too. Some like his biggest criticism actually being a little bit too strong on gun control. But he's passed the New York Safe Act, which is considered the toughest gun control law in the United States. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's still the case, but at least when he
I think
passed
so.
it.
The NRA called it draconian,
Yeah.
so it's definitely pretty intense.
Yeah, and the New York State's Sheriff Association said that the magazine limit of 7 rounds and was one of the issues, and also there was like a too broad definition of assault weapons. But I mean, I feel like yeah, the 7 rounds thing, that's a little far, but at the same time, I mean like,
I feel like I feel like for me, Cuomo is kind of a mixed bag. There's things I like and things I don't like, and I feel like this is another thing. There's parts that I like about it. For example, what was it? Stolen guns are required to be reported within 24 hours. Failure to report can result in a misdemeanor. Well, yeah, duh, that's a good idea. That should be like, yeah, that's good. And it's just like stuff like that, like um, requires pistol permit holders and or owners of registered assault weapons to have them renewed at least every 5 years and stuff like this. That like that those are good laws. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But obviously, there's kind of stuff that's kind of dumb. It's like, okay, only 7 rounds. So like, well,
Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit
that
excessive almost.
yeah.
And also, I don't know exactly what they mean by it's a too broad definition of assault weapons, but I feel like assault weapons they shouldn't really be that accessible. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just my personal opinion. Like I'm not extremely strict on gun control, but I feel like those things that he passed about how pretty much making sure they don't get stolen and people don't use them for the wrong purpose, those are extremely necessary. That's common sense, to be honest. I
Yeah.
feel like the only things that you could really criticize him for is how much he's restricting, but those
Mhm.
things should be in place like everywhere,
Mhm.
really.
And also, there's the whole mental health thing. Basically, if a mental health professional believes that their patient has like could potentially harm others, like they're allowed to basically take the gun away. Which you could say, okay, well you're infringing on his liberties, but again, that's not a bad like people have been saying, oh well that's something that should be like passed and dealt with after Sandy Hook. It's like, well mental health is a thing. If you see someone who is like mentally handicapped, like shouldn't you be able to take their gun away from them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And so like some of the stuff in it isn't bad, but like so I feel like in some cases, yeah, it is a little bit too strict. But I feel like it's also kind of a matter of opinion and like where you fall on the whole spectrum of
But
that.
overall, I feel like it's a pretty good idea. Like his gun control is pretty solid.
Mixed bag, I support it, but I understand why people don't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
so I want to talk a little bit about hydraulic fracturing. So basically, he isn't for it. They actually the biggest thing is in June 2012, he stated that they'd consider lifting the ban, which would possibly help stimulate the economy in upstate New York. But they didn't actually end up doing it. Like critics told them that it's a bad idea. There was health concerns, contaminated water, a ton of different things. I personally am against it completely. Like at first I didn't
As am
understand
I.
it, but when I
Yeah.
like looked more into it, I realized it's just not a
Yeah.
good idea. So he didn't end up lifting the ban, but they considered it. It took till 2014 in December to really firmly say no, we're not going to do it. But I mean, at least he never did it. So
Yeah. Which is good. That's progressive of him, I
exactly,
guess.
it's just a little strange that
He would consider
he'd
it.
consider it
Yeah.
for like 2 years until like he realized. But I mean, I guess you want to get all the information. At least he didn't just pass it and then be like, well, we'll wait to get
Oh
rid of it.
crap. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it was a smart move by him.
Hmm.
Also, is that all pretty much for fracturing?
Yeah.
Okay. So public employees. I don't know if I completely understand what this is saying, but it seems as though he's almost against public employees because he says that they made a 5-year deal with the Public Employees Federation to end pay raises, implement furlough days, which are like leaves of
Mhm.
absence, which are good, but and require more health insurance contributions. And also in 2012, he said he wants to reduce public employee pensions. That kind of seems like he's trying to take away money from them, and like,
It sounds like, smaller government, kind of conservative idea of just like less government, more like
mhm.
capitalism.
It seems as though like he's trying to take away from like public office, which
Hmm.
I don't really think that's a great idea, but I guess I
Hmm.
mean I don't know. It might be a good idea. I'm not too
I think
educated
it's
in that
well,
area.
it all depends on like where you are on the political spectrum. It's like really not. It's not a liberal thing to do. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's kind
At
of what
all.
I felt
Yeah.
too.
I want to briefly mention the Moreland Commission. Basically, it was like an anti-corruption commission that was put together in July 14th and was there for 2 months, and then it was for some reason disbanded by Cuomo, and that's probably because Cuomo's a little bit corrupt. But honestly, like every single politician is corrupt at this point. So
I wouldn't
yeah.
say every, okay?
Well, not every single one.
Bernie Sanders. No, I'm just kidding. There's others, you
It's
know.
true.
There are
It's true.
definitely others, but for the most part, you could make a generalization. A
I
lot of
mean,
them
like
are corrupt.
yeah, I feel like a lot of like the yeah, I feel like a
I
lot of
see what you're saying
find this in
completely.
something.
Yeah, I mean that is a little weird, but if you probably looked at it, you'd see kind of stuff that we criticize Hillary for and a lot of other people for. So, okay, moving on. Marijuana legalization. So in January 2014, he made medical marijuana available to 20 designated hospitals for cancer treatment. And that might seem like, oh, he's making it legal, but he really only did those 20 places. But then later on in that year, he made it completely legal for medical use. Well, not like all
Hmm.
medical uses, but for medical use throughout the state, which
Hmm.
is good. But he didn't really do it until he was pushed by legalization activists. So I mean, I don't know if he 100% agrees with it, but at least he made that progress.
Yeah, I think it's like one of those kind of things. It's kind of like similar to Hillary, where he's doing it like medical marijuana because like it's kind of like what everyone's thinking,
Hmm.
but he's not legalizing it fully. Again, I think it's one of those more like centrist, moderate kind of views, and it's like yeah, okay. I mean, that's just how he kind of feels about that. It makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like he definitely tries to, at least like on these certain issues. There's like certain issues I feel like he doesn't care that much about. He just wants to be somewhat moderate. He wants to go a little bit towards where everyone's going.
He
I
doesn't want to
think
make him a liability. I think that's
exactly that's why I feel he thinks about marijuana legalization. But things like like same-sex marriage, I feel like
and
those are
guns. Yeah,
yeah, those are actually personal issues where he's like, I want to get these through.
I feel like liberal issues and like yeah, gun control, which is interesting. He's like super like pro to the left on that. I
Yeah,
think.
definitely.
Um, and then briefly, I want to talk about remarks about conservatives. It's not really like something we have to talk about in terms of his office, but I found it interesting. He basically said, "Are they these extreme conservatives who are right to life, pro assault weapon, anti-gay? Is that who are they? Is that who they are? Because if that's who they are and they're extreme conservatives, they have no place in the state of New York because that's not what New Yorkers are." This sounds really, it sounds honestly kind of a little bit condescending, and it's something that I would say. Uh,
Yeah,
but
honestly.
I get what he's saying. Is like, yeah, you can't really have like the only kind of like Republican you can have is like a moderate Republican, like George Pataki and that kind of thing. And he's right. I mean, it's kind of a jerk thing to say to kind of just basically say the other side's crazy. But I feel like in New York you can get away with it.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't disagree with him.
Hmm.
But it's something very interesting, and it kind of goes to show you like about New York is you can kind of get away with saying the Tea Party's crazy.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, they
I
are.
think it's kind of right in saying that, and I feel like that's another good thing for him. I'm glad we mentioned that because you really should have somebody who's going to represent New York, and you don't really. We're just not a very conservative state. Like we're not a really Republican state. So I
Hmm.
mean, to have a extreme conservative would just like go against what everyone thinks.
Exactly.
So. I mean, that's definitely a solid point. I mean, even saying that though, I feel like he is more moderate, which I mean we've said a lot of the time.
Hmm.
So I think he's just kind of like alluding to like you kind of want to have more moderate things. People shouldn't be just pushing too far away from the people
Yeah. I really think
in
he's
any way.
like, yeah, he's like a centrist moderate Democrat, very similar to Hillary, which why it's no surprise he endorsed Hillary.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't dislike him though. Like reading this, like I don't feel like, oh my goodness, I hate him. I mean, granted, he's not. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to have an actual rating, or are we just saying he's
We'll
pretty
give
good?
him a rating. Let's say out of 10, I'll give him 7 out of 10. Would reelect, but would look carefully at what he does next.
Mhm. I'd like to say 8, but I'd probably go around like 7, but anywhere between 7 and 8. It's hard to say because I think he's done a lot of good things, but I feel like there are a little bit of questionable areas, kind of like his public employees take,
Yeah,
how far he has to be pushed to pass certain progressive issues. But I mean, overall, like he's done a
yeah,
pretty good job.
yeah. And anything below a 5 is like we're not reelecting him.
Yes, and if we rate somebody in this series like below 5, it's pretty much like you didn't do a good job, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think
All
that's
right.
pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you guys stick around for the next ones.
All right. See ya.